my greeting a little bit louder because I noticed on the last ones when I was listening to them that I kind of started out soft and it was hard to hear me at the beginning. So hello and welcome, and thank you for joining me here on Truth Talk. This reading, the readings I do here are around what masks that we wear in the world, and we all wear masks. Everyone has masks that they wear. It's just ways that we've learned to adapt and to move throughout the world. That has, it's things that we've chosen to, maybe things we've chosen to identify with, like roles that we've chosen to identify with, or it could be protection mechanisms that we've put in place to protect ourselves because we've learned, to do these things. Sometimes people call these, can say a person is manipulative when really it's not manipulation. It's just the way they've learned to move through the world to protect themselves. Because that's what that's inevitably what happens to us all, because as we have our experiences in life, as we grow up, we experience different things, and there's different things that happen to us, and we form these ideas or beliefs or values around these experiences that we've had. And so what these readings are meant to do is to help you identify things where maybe there's these masks or ways of looking at things, beliefs, values that are no longer serving us, that really aren't who we are. Maybe, we learned these things from our parents, or we learned these things as a child because of experiences we've had. And now as an adult, maybe they're not serving us anymore. Maybe it's time to set those down. And I love the fact that I started doing these readings. I actually started doing these readings on the 250th anniversary of the United States of America, so July 4th here in the United States. And I don't know what drove me to choose that. Well, it was a series of events actually that kind of happened, little signs that I got that told me now is the time to do it. And I didn't really realize it until this moment in time. When I got ready, when I got up today, I realized today is 7/7. Okay. So, and what that means is significantly in the spiritual sense, or numerology. The number 7 can mean like spiritual development. It can be inner wisdom. It's basically looking at things, taking the time to grow spiritually, or to gain some kind of inner wisdom, adopt some kind of inner wisdom or truth. It also can be talk about breaking through illusions, to see through illusions that maybe we have had. It's kind of like now is the time to start seeing through the matrix, so to speak. So I really feel like this is a strong time with the way the planets are aligned at this time. I'm not an astrologer. I won't claim to be, but I do kind of follow the basic principles and kind of keep tabs on what's going on. And right now we have Neptune, which is in retrograde, and that's all about breaking through illusions, seeing through illusions. So right now is the perfect time for us to see through our own illusions and through the illusions of others. So we're seeing that happen in the world, and it's causing some chaos, a little kerfuffle here and there. I'll put that mildly, of things that are going on. But you might be feeling this right now in your life as resistance. You might be feeling some resistance to things. There may be things that are coming up for you, especially since we're also under a Mercury retrograde, which is in the sign of Cancer. And Cancer is all about things that are coming up from the depths, the shadows. It's the moon. Cancer represents the moon. It represents hidden things that are in the shadow, this is a time for those to be illuminated, or we're seeing through those shadows to the light, to the heart, to the truth of the situation. So I love that this is the time that I picked to do and start these readings, because I think it's a perfect time for us to really dive in and see, to understand some of these masks that maybe that we've put on throughout our lives, and see them for what they are, and then be able to evaluate those masks and then lay them down if they're no longer serving us, or to keep them in place if they are. Maybe you identify with this and you're okay with it, and you say, you know what, I'm fine with this. This is who I want to be. And that's what this is all about. It's not, this is for you. This is for you to help you as a viewer understand, how you may be moving in the world, to do that assessment process, to identify, hey, this is something I'm doing, be aware of it. And through that awareness, then you can self-evaluate and say, is this serving me or is it not? And then you can make that decision whether to keep doing things the way you're doing, or to basically change something up. So, I didn't plan on doing this, but at this moment, but the way this kind of rolled all in here, I wrote a book that's called "We Are Not What We've Been Taught." Okay, so this book, it's all about, it's not light reading. It really helps you dive into various different masks. It helps you identify maybe some of the masks that you wear through questions. There's a little bit of, kind of talks about various things in each chapter, and at the end of the chapter, then it kind of goes into different questions, reflective questions, to help you really, think, engage you in thought, and really start thinking about how, some of the masks that you wear, so that you can do some of that evaluation process. And I have the link to that book on my page, and it'll be in soon it'll be in the description. I need to check and see if YouTube has updated where I can post links yet in descriptions or not. But let's go ahead and dive into the reading. That was kind of a long intro, and so I will put timestamps on here to help you get, for those of you that just want to get to the heart of the matter. But I found this really interesting. So I pulled the spread ahead of time. If you're new to this channel, I pulled the spread ahead of time because I need time to really think through what the cards are trying to tell me, because this is a little bit different process. This is a new spread that I've developed based on the content in my book. And so this is, for me, I've called this spread the Sacred Yes spread, and I do need to post an image of this spread for people out there that might be interested in doing this for themselves. But the first position that we have is the mask itself. So this helps us identify what the mask is, and to let us know what we may be hiding from ourselves at this time, or what we may not be aware of. So it's basically the question we're asking in this first position is what are we, what do we need to know right now? What are we that may be occurring that we're not aware of at this time that needs to be looked at? Okay, so for this position today, I got the Page of Cups. Okay, and it took me a minute, let me tell you, to think about the mask that is here. So what came up for me, and I had to really look at the cards that came out around it in the other positions to understand this, is this is all about fear of not being accepted, okay? And I don't know what I'll call this mask. I'll have to think of that when I get ready to post the video, but which will be as soon as it's done here. I'll have to think about that, on what this mask would represent. But it really is the reading is focused around the need for validation, the fear of not being accepted, of not fitting in, something to that effect. You look at this little guy, or this little gentleman on the card, and he looks like, he's fearful. He's holding that cup for dear life. And the cup is, for me, if you ever, I don't know if any of you that are visiting this reading have watched any of my previous readings on my other channels, I had a channel called Soul Conscious Tarot that I did readings for about 3 years. And for me, when I see the cup in tarot, it embodies, like, in this cup is everything, the essence of who we are. And so we offer that cup out to the people around us. So we, this is the embodiment of, like, when we go maybe on a first date or we meet someone for the first time, our cup is what we're handing them. We're saying, this is the essence of who we are that we're presenting to you. So you're presenting yourself to something or someone or whatever, a job, a person, whatever. And then we have the 2 fish up here, and the 2 fish, all that, that can be Pisces. It can represent soulmates, but it is also companionship or partnership. And so I feel like this little guy is talking about, in this card, that he's afraid to extend himself out to the world at large, because there's a fear within him that he may be rejected in some way. So let's go ahead and get some clarifications on that, although I don't really feel like I probably need much. So this is interesting, and the secret came out as a clarification on that. And so I feel like I'm getting this because So I'm getting this as emotion. There's all this blue on the card, and I'm really feeling that's, I think blue represents communication in the throat chakra, right? I think somebody can clarify. I should say somebody that's subscribed can clarify that, because I have comments on, but they're set only for subscribers. So if you're not a subscriber, that would be a good reason to subscribe, so that you can leave a comment for me and help me out here to understand. I'm pretty sure that blue is your throat chakra and communication. So what this, or at least that's what I'm feeling at the moment, this card is about. And so there's this little dragon. I think it's supposed to be kind of a little dragon that almost looks like he's trying to fly up out of something. So and this is air, this dragon, it's got wings, it flies. And so and there's all this blue. So I'm feeling this very airy, communication, because, air is usually around communication. And so I feel like with this clarifying the Page of Cups here that I can't seem to pick up at the moment, with this clarifying the Page of Cups, or I should put this on here, what this is telling me is that maybe there's a rejection or a fear of being able to voice your truth, okay? It might be that's what we're masking, is maybe we're finding ways to move through the world right now to cover up to other people that we have this fear of being accepted, that we're afraid to say our truth to people, because maybe by, saying our truth, we're afraid that somebody will reject us so it's kind of like, when somebody will, you're pretending to be something that you're not, and or pretending to be liked, or trying to fit in, that's a good example. Like I would say a good example of this is when somebody, especially like in school and stuff, you want to be in the in crowd, or you want to fit in. So you might do something or say something just to fit in, just to go along with the crowd, just to get accepted. And that's what this energy is really telling me it is, okay? So that's what we're talking about here, is kind of like, because of a need, there's something inside of us that is afraid to be who we authentically are. And so to cover that up, to mask that fear, we may be presenting in a way of being untruthful to others, because we're not being truthful to ourselves or to the others around us, because we're afraid of being rejected or not being accepted for who we truly are. So if that is sounding like something that maybe might be resonating with you, then this reading might be for you. And this is a general message, so keep that in mind. This may not pertain to everyone, and that's why we're going into it, so you can kind of get an idea of whether this is for you or not. But that's basically the storyline that we're unraveling right now. It'll be everything to kind of support that and walk us through what the universe wants to tell us when it comes to anyone that might be working through that problem right now, or maybe having trouble, because this is with the first position. It's all about what we're hiding from ourselves. It's the way we're hiding, like masking to the world, the way we're presenting ourselves to the world that maybe we're not aware of. And maybe you weren't aware that you were doing this, but by me talking about it, you might be going, oh gosh, I do that. Or you might be thinking in that one instance, maybe in a work situation, in your work environment, you're afraid to be who you really are because you're afraid that you won't be accepted by the people that you work for, or they won't like you as a person, and so they'll get rid of you. And maybe that's a way of saying, is this really the right place for me? If I have to shrink, if I have to be something that I'm not, is this really the right environment for me to be in? And that goes for relationships as well. Any environment where you feel like you have to shrink, or you're afraid to be who you really are, is not the right environment for you to be in. And maybe that's what, I think that's really the meat of what we're getting here at today, is that, what places in the world, or, in your world, in your life and environment, are you shrinking for others? Are you afraid to say where are you afraid to say your truth, or to be who you truly are, because you feel like you have to placate others, or there's a need to be validated, or a need to be accepted, something like that. So we have what also came out, that I'm pulling two clarifications on this one. I may not on the other positions. We'll see what happens here. So I have tough armadillo. I'm going to have to read this, but it's tough armadillo. And it says security, toughness, boundaries. You need to, with the help of others, defend you. That kind of, I don't know. I don't think this came with the book. So you need, with the help of others, you need to, with the help of others, defend you. Okay, so maybe I do see, that there could be, for some of you, it might be talking about putting on that facade of protection, of protecting who you really are or not. Again, I think that there is this fear. Whenever we protect ourselves in any way, when we're putting up a boundary, it's because we're protecting ourselves in some way. We're protecting our energy, we're protecting something, our emotional well-being, we're protecting something. That's what boundaries are all about. They're about protecting who we are, so that certain energies can't mess with who we are. Because sometimes there are people, and I am guilty of this, like, if I'm around certain people, that because I'm such an empath, I will take on their feelings and emotions. And sometimes that can overwhelm me. I can get overstimulated. So I have to put up these healthy boundaries for my own security and my own protection. And that's kind of, I feel like, armadillo, that's kind of what it's getting at. But it says here, you need to, with the help of others, defend you. So I'm almost getting like, maybe there's a need right now to try and find the people around you that actually will support you, who actually do accept you for who you are, that actually are there for you, and you don't have this fear around them of really being yourself, of where you can let your hair down and be yourself. I think that might be needed at this time. And maybe those are the people that you maybe want to get advice from, or to help you navigate through maybe why they're if you're challenged with having a fear of speaking up to others or speaking your truth or being your true authentic self around other people, to understand why you're afraid of that, or why you're afraid of being rejected by other people outside of maybe the few people that do accept you for who you are. And usually that comes around some kind of wounding that we may have encountered in our lifetime, whether that be from our parents. It's usually a rejection wound or an abandonment wound. Typically a rejection wound, like maybe because someone has criticized you. Typically that would be your parents, but it doesn't have to be, because it can be, like when you're going to school, it could have been a teacher, it could be, somebody, a classmate or whatever, that ridiculed you or criticized you or made you feel small, and through making you feel small, you started to protect or pull back and be afraid then of being yourself, because maybe somebody made you feel like you didn't belong, or you didn't fit in, or that you weren't good enough, or that they ridiculed you in some way, but because of when you were being yourself, so you learned to do something different than be who you really are. So you kind of dimmed your shine, so to speak. And so this is all about, now is a time to really reassess that and assess the places where you might be dimming your light, where you might be making yourself small in your life. We have talked way too long about that first card, let me tell you, but it's flowing. I'm sorry, but I'm in the zone and the information is flowing, and I just have to say what comes intuitively to my mind. So in the second position, we have the mirror position. So this is the position where what is being reflected back to us at this time. What do we need to see? What are we maybe not seeing that's being reflected back to us in the world? So we have the Four of Swords here. And the Four of Swords I'm getting off of here is, like, funny enough, I'm getting indifference. If we're talking about, a fear of being rejected, or a fear of not fitting in, not belonging, something to that effect, then I really feel like this card in the mirror position she looks like she just doesn't care. She just is doing her own thing and she doesn't care. This is but I also feel like, she's also covered in these the sheets, the blankets here. She's kind of swaddled and wrapped in those. And so there's this sense of comfort, of staying in our comfort zone, with that. But I also feel like, too, here we have, again, this is swords. So it's again, communication. And I feel like, like she's using her words and the way she's communicating to protect herself. So again, it kind of, it kind of draws me into, again, this fear of maybe being able to really communicate in the way that we want to communicate in certain situations, because of possibly a fear. And then we have, this is the Four of Swords is also a card that can talk about healing something. And this is kind of saying there might be a need, or what's being reflected back to us is there's this need right now to address where we might be fearing communicating, or communicating authentically. Let me clarify that. Communicating authentically. So let's go ahead and, you know what I think I want, I'm gonna just go wild here. We're gonna just pull from all kinds of decks, whatever feels right. And I feel like this deck right now for this, clarifying it. So we have beginnings. I don't know what this creature is supposed to be. This is the Oracle of the Wisdom of the Wild Things is what this Oracle deck is. So this little guy, he's got this egg tied behind him, but that egg is cracked. And it's like he's keeping it behind his back. And so I believe that an egg can represent, and this is just, I'm just intuitively going off of it, of what's coming to me at this moment. But for me, what I'm seeing here is this egg is representing our knowledge, our wisdom, our sacred knowledge, our sacred wisdom, and he's got that hidden behind his back. And he's barely like, it's barely held up there by that string. It looks like it could, for that egg being so fragile and already cracked, he's not protecting it as well as he probably should be to keep it safe. And so this is like, I feel like this could be, in a sense, almost a fragile new beginning. We have beginnings here, and I'm almost getting the sense of whenever you might be someone, and this is, you have to take this as it resonates. It's won't be for everyone, but maybe you have a fear of starting new things because you're afraid of the impression that you will make. Maybe you're afraid that you're not wise enough, that you're not intellectual enough, that you don't have the skills that you need to start new things, or when you start new things, there's a lack of confidence. That's what I'm kind of trying to get to. There's a lack of confidence in who you are, and that lack of confidence goes back to, again, this kind of fear, this underlying fear of maybe you're not good enough. Maybe you're not, the fear of rejection, the fear of not being liked for who you are. So there's this, whenever you go into situations, and I've been this person, where I've been very anxious when I start new things. And that's how I understand this, because I've experienced this in my life of not feeling confident enough in who you are and who you are as a person to show up authentically in a situation. And when you can't do that, then you're trying to impress someone, you're trying to get someone to like you. And through doing that, there's this fear they won't like you. And that fear causes that anxiety because you're afraid of what the other person will think. Because you really may want, it could be a job interview and you really, want that job, or it could be that it's somebody that you're really attracted to and you really like them. And so you have this fear that they won't like you back so you try to impress them, you try to overcompensate or something like that, or try to say things that maybe not really authentic to who you are, is what I'm getting here. So then we're going to go ahead and move on to the mirror position, the flame position. The flame position is position number 3. And so this is what ignites your passion. Okay, so the flame position is the ammunition, so to speak, to get us to really maybe do the work. What is it going to take, or what needs to invigorate us or ignite our passion within us to make the change. Okay, so we have the 5 of Pentacles here. And so the 5 of Pentacles is usually a card of someone being left out in the cold. Somebody that this guy is sitting by himself, he's abandoned. And so there's this fear of being alone that's motivating you maybe to, to overcome this fear at times of, maybe talking or saying your truth. But this is, how do I want to put this? Because this is in our ignite. This is how this reading can be very tricky because of the material that we're covering here. So in this position, with it, the 5 of Pentacles igniting our passion, I feel like, okay, so this guy is sitting, there's stairs here behind him, but it's almost like he feels overwhelmed by what he has to do. And so I feel like, now how would this apply to what we're talking about here? Give me just a minute to think about this. So we have the Page of Cups, which is all about our of us not being authentic, and the way we're masking is through trying to be liked, doing things that are not authentic to us in order to impress others or to be liked by others so that we fit in and we belong. And what's being mirrored back to us is the fact that we maybe have this fear of communicating, of being our authentic self, that we are protecting ourselves, that we're keeping ourselves small. And that's what's being mirrored back to us, is the fact that we don't feel like we can, be our authentic self, that we have to be something other than who we are. And then to ignite that, or to change that, what ignites our passion? Well, one, the desire to fit in, the desire to fit in and not be abandoned is what is driving that motivation to wear that mask, And like I said, these masks are not, this is about awareness and evaluation. It doesn't mean the mask itself is good or bad. Nothing is innately good or bad. It's what we assign to it. Now, if you feel like this is something that you need to continue doing, then feel free to continue doing it. But this is to bring this to your awareness. If this is something you're doing in your life, is it suiting you? Is it suiting your highest good? Is it actually helping you or hindering in your life? And only you can answer that. Only you have the ability to answer that question of, is this something that's helping you? When you keep yourself small, when you are afraid of speaking your truth, when you overcompensate in situations to be liked, do you feel like that's actually helping you? Or is it creating more anxiety or making you feel not aligned with yourself? And that's what you have to kind of evaluate. Are you feeling more alone? Which I feel like it would make you feel more alone. I mean, I don't know. That's something you have to figure out for yourself. But for me, it would make me feel more alone, because now as you continue to do things to impress other people or to make other people like you, then you start getting away from who you are as a person, and you start becoming someone else that is not truly you. And with that, you start to lose yourself. And then it's like, how do you find yourself again? That can be a daunting task, because then you can start feeling like you really are alone in the world, and like nobody really gets you or understands you, because you feel like you have to be somebody else to be liked. And so then you start really feeling alone, or I would feel really alone if I wasn't, if I felt like people really didn't get me and they really didn't understand me. And the reason they really didn't feel me, or they really didn't understand me or get me, is because I'm not ever myself. I'm never, my true self with people, because I'm trying to make them like me. I'm trying to seek that validation. I'm trying to not be rejected. I'm trying to, not feel, you got the point. You got the point. So I don't think I need to clarify that. I'm not feeling the need to clarify that. I think the point got across. Let's go ahead and move on to the next position, is our boundary position. So in the boundary position, we have the magician. The boundary position is what we should be saying no to, that we maybe aren't saying no to. And so this is interesting with it coming into the magician. So the magician, we talked about at the beginning, if you listen to that part, because I know some of you probably fast forwarded through that intro to get to the reading itself. But we talked about illusions, and this is a time to break down those illusions, to get rid of the illusions, to see through the illusions. And I feel like with this being in the boundary position, what we should be saying no to at this time is to really address or look at where we might be creating these illusions for ourselves. Where are we not being true to ourselves so that we can see through and get the truth of the matter, and then to do that assessment. Because, you know, the magician can talk about having all the tools you need to do something, and we do, because this is our own self-evaluation. So in this case, you do have the tools to do that. But I feel like the magician coming out in the boundaries position is really that, you know, trying to break through the illusions, you know, the illusions, the masks that you're wearing at this time, you know, and ask yourself, are they serving you? Like, is this really something that you want for yourself? Is this true to who you are? Is this authentic for you? Let's go ahead and pull a card. I'm going to pull one of the Beast Soul Oracles for this. Clarify this Magician card and how it is a boundary for us. Clarify how this Magician card is a boundary for us. So we have Soaring Eagle. And at first I did not see that as an eagle. I saw that as a wolf at first. So I don't know, that's interesting that I saw that as a wolf before I read the card and read it as eagle, and then I saw the eagle. So it kind of tricked me. So it's almost like, you know how wolves can be very, they can be very like protective, defensive, you know, and they can be very defensive. They can be, you know, like they're very, you know, territorial is the word I was getting at. So very protective of something. So there could be something, you know, possibly you might be triggered by some of the stuff going on in the reading. And if you are, that's okay. That's good, because that means you're resonating with the reading. I hate to say that, but you know, if you are getting defensive or that this is hitting your ego in some way, it's because this is resonating for you. So keep that in mind. And that's usually a good sign that there's something that is telling us, whenever we feel emotions like that, whenever something gets under our skin and it starts to trigger us, there's a reason why that's triggering us. It's basically our nervous system telling us there's something about this that we don't like. And so we need to do the work of figuring out why do we not like it? What about it is bothering us? You know, that's our work to do, you know, as people. So interesting enough, that's about clarity. It says clarity, insight, inspiration. Those are all kinds of things that we talked about at the beginning. And I really feel like this is, you know, with this, like I talked about this being, you know, it's July 7th, it's the 7/7 portal, or what they talk about being the 7/7 portal, which is just a representation of, you know, kind of spiritual concepts or insight into, you know, numerology, different things that actually, you know, pertain to certain things, which for this instance, I feel like those illusions, especially with this clarifying the Magician card, it's clarifying this Magician card. And look at those colors. The colors are very similar on those two cards. They're very, very similar, and they actually they have a lot of similarities in them. I actually am getting, interesting enough, it's like grounding. There's a need to ground something. And I don't know why that's coming through. And maybe for some of you, maybe there's a need, like maybe at this time, to try and ground a little bit more. If you're not familiar with grounding, sometimes we can get too much into our headspace, and that can create almost a lightheaded feeling, a little airiness or lightheadedness, because our energy we may be too much in our head. And so sometimes to ground that, like especially if you tend to daydream, if you daydream a lot, you can get kind of that, you know, you could become ungrounded. And so to ground, you can just, you know, put your feet on bare feet in the grass, if you have the ability to do that. If you don't, if you live someplace that, like I do, that you can't do that easily, you can drink water or eat some food or something like that. It's something to bring you back more into the present and out of your mind, is how you kind of quick ways to ground. The only reason I'm feeling that is because there's all this kind of like energy up here around her head with the Magician, and then we have like these flowers and stuff down here at his feet. So it's almost like feeling like there's this need to ground this energy at this time, that we may be too much in illusion, we may be too much in our head, there may be a lot that's going on that's keeping us, in this state of either like thinking through things or imagining things or visualizing things that there's this need to ground ourselves at this time. So the fifth position is the wave position. The wave position is our emotional truth, or what needs to be expressed at this time. And look at this poor lady. This is the Ten of Swords. So this is our emotions and what needs to be expressed emotionally at this time. And this poor woman, she just looks like she's been through it. So I feel like again, it's sword energy, and swords are all about communication. And I feel like, this is where she stabbed her own self in the back. She's caused herself pain. And I think this is the pain that came at our own expense for the damage that we've done. Basically, it's almost like I have to be careful in how I put this. I thought about the words that were about to come out of my mouth, and I'm like, yeah, I don't think YouTube would probably like those words coming out in that way. So I feel like that she is basically cutting off. I'll put it this way: cutting off or putting an end to her. How can I put this so that it doesn't trip any things? So it's kind of like she's hurting her true self, like putting an end to it, essentially killing it off, killing off her true self, her true identity. And that's causing her pain. I feel like for not being who she truly is, not saying her truth, standing in her truth, communicating her truth, she's slowly, putting an end to her true identity. There's a certain combination of words I keep wanting to use, and I have to catch myself. But I think you understand what I'm trying to get at. I just have to be careful in how I say that, because it will flag the video. So let's go ahead and clarify this Ten of Swords. Give me the Ten of Swords in clarifying our emotions that need to be felt. Thank you. Yes. 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 Look what came out, the Death card. Isn't that ironic? That's what I was trying to get at. Putting an end. She's basically sabotaging her own self. So this is saying that we're hurting ourselves, and we're hurting ourselves. And I said that I would see how that can happen, that we're causing our own selves pain in many different ways here. Because we could be causing we could be affecting our nervous system, because we're causing ourselves anxiety in certain situations where we're afraid to be ourselves. We also can be, hurting and hampering ourselves because we're keeping ourselves small, or to try and fit in or try to impress others. And through that, we're actually hurting ourselves because we're not being the person that we're meant to be, that we were born in this life to be. And so we could be, there could be things that we could have or could have accomplished if we weren't afraid to be who we are. So there's that, we're hurting ourselves possibly in those kinds of ways. And so let's see. I feel like I need to pull another card, but I don't. I think I'm just going to go ahead and use the original tarot deck that I pulled from, because I feel like I want to pull something else on this. I don't know why, I'm just being tapped and set, you know, being pushed to pull one. And the Empress. The Empress is all about being our full authentic self, you know, really nurturing ourselves. You know, this is the embodiment. The Empress is the embodiment of being our authentic self, of really standing in our truth, of putting that out in the world, being okay with ourselves, accepting ourselves, loving ourselves, you know, nurturing ourselves. And that's what I feel like we're not doing. You know, we're putting an end to ourselves here, you know, through the actions we're taking, through the ways we're walking in the world. We're actually putting an end to, you know, we have to be careful, you know, here on how this, you know, plays out. And, you know, as you saw, I was being careful with my words. I had to be careful. I couldn't say what I really wanted to say. I had to mask. Isn't it perfect that something like that comes up in a reading about this, that I had to be careful because of YouTube standards, because of the, you know, I didn't want this reading to be flagged. I had to, and this is a perfect example of how we can't always be our true self. And we have to understand, is that really hurting or hindering who we are? In this instance, you know, it wasn't really hindering or hurting who I am as a person to kind of try and reword things in a different way. I couldn't use the words that I would personally use, but it also isn't affecting me on a soul level by trying to just reword something, but it's still a form of masking, because I couldn't just say it the way I wanted to say it. I had to kind of mask in a way to get around something else, you know, to be liked by YouTube. Isn't that funny? Okay, so it's funny how all that works out, isn't it? To give you a real life example in real time of how this reading all plays out. So for the last position, which is our permission position, say that 5 times, is the Page of Swords. So I really like this in this position. This is the position. Permission is, what do we need to say yes to? What do we need to give our permission to ourselves to say yes to? And again, we have another card of communication. As you've seen, this whole reading was almost all swords. It was all swords energy, or we had the Magician show up, which is Mercury. I think the Magician is Mercury energy. And again, if you're not subscribed, subscribe and leave me a comment down below to correct me. I'm fine with that. So I believe that Mercury, well, it's definitely is a sign of communication, the planet of communication, but I think that the Magician is also, I think Mercury is, the Magician and Mercury are tied in some way. But it's like this card there is so much air, but look at this guy on this card. I'm sorry, this is the Knight of Swords. I said Page of Swords before. The Knight of Swords. But look how confident this guy looks. He's almost even looking, I don't know if you can see, but he almost, let's see if I can get it to come into focus. He looks like he's winking. I don't know if you can see that, but he looks like he looks like he's winking. So what is that? Why did that come into my head? Blinking, winking, and nod. I don't know if that's resonates with somebody, you know, maybe that is a sign for somebody that this is your reading. I have no idea why that came in my head. I don't even really, I've barely ever heard that, and I think it's a town story. I don't even know what it is. I've heard it like maybe once or twice in my entire lifetime. Blinking. And I can't even say it again now. It left, so it was for somebody. But we have the Knight of Swords here, and this guy looks completely confident. He looks like he's got, you know, he's like, I got this, you know. And I feel like, well, again, that is a way, confidence is a way we can mask. We talk about faking it until we make it. And in some instance we do that. Everything, that's why I said everything can be a mask. And masks aren't good or bad. It's just, is it suiting us or not? Is it actually resonating with our true self, or are we in essence causing ourselves pain, as we saw in the the wave position? So as we saw with the Ten of Swords, are we doing something that actually is a detriment to us, or are we wearing these masks in a way that actually are helping us in some way? And only you can be the judge of that. But with this Knight of Swords, I actually do like seeing in this position, because it's telling you to say yes to things that you want to do, to have the confidence and not be fearful of saying what you want to say, especially when we have this being swords and communication, not being afraid of being confident in speaking your truth, of saying what you want to say, and to go forth and do the things that you want to do. I think I want to do another Beast Soul for clarification for this. I think we're going to do that, and then we're going to wrap it up. I don't think I'm ever going to get these readings to be under, like, as short as I was hoping they would be. I never imagined these readings would all be hitting right in an hour, and it is what it is. I mean, the messages have to come out. So I don't think that there's any way I can make this any quicker, honestly, without really taking away from the reading itself. So for this clarification on the permission position and what we need to say yes to, we have spiritual moth. Spiritual moth. Ooh, like hypnotic eyes there on that moth. Okay, it's not his eyes, but it's hypnotizing. It's hypnotizing me. I keep drawing to the spiral. So spiraling. Maybe you're spiraling on something right now. Maybe spiraling, something going round and round. Maybe you're going round and round with something at this time. Maybe there's something that's really eating at you, bothering you. We kind of got that, touched on that somebody might be in their head a little bit too much and needs to ground at this time, because they might be going round and round about something, and so that's eating at them. That's just coming through intuitively. So spirituality, psychic ability, passion. That takes me back to the passion position. What ignites our passion? And fear of missing, or fear of being rejected, fear of not fitting in. So that's what's pushing us to do what we're doing at this time. So having mystical and Satori, is that right? Satori experiences, allowing your magic to create in life. True self begins to emerge. Ooh, true self begins to emerge. Yeah, I love that. That really is fitting. That really is fitting. Again, the color comparison. Same color tones as these. The same color tones. I love it. Okay. And what did we talk about with the Magician card? We talked about breaking through illusions, the need to break through illusions. And look, he's got the sword, and it looks like he's cutting through what really isn't there, the illusions. He looks like he's cutting through something that's false, that's almost not really there. It's fake. It's just air. It's pretend, it's fake. So it's cutting through cutting through the falseness, the pretend, the fakeness. And maybe you're seeing this in maybe, especially with the spiritual moth coming out with psychic abilities, maybe your psychic abilities at this time, with it being the 7/7 portal, maybe they're heightened at this time, because we are, like I said, Neptune is in retrograde, and so we're seeing through illusions. So maybe not only are you seeing, this is to help you see through your illusions, but maybe you're seeing through the illusions of others as well. Maybe you're starting to see their bull, that they're dishing out to you, and you're seeing people for who they really are, seeing their truth, cutting through that illusion and seeing their truth, because maybe their true self is starting to emerge at this time, just as yours is maybe starting to emerge. Maybe you're identifying with this reading and saying, this is a time that I need to start being who I really who I am, and stop trying to pretend to be something I'm not, and really just getting in touch with yourself. I mean, that's what a lot of this reading is about, and this is what it's indicating with this moth coming out, clarifying the Knight of Swords here. Is it's really about making movement toward really becoming who you truly are, emerging as your true self, coming into your own, finding yourself again, creating the life, allowing yourself to create a life that is more authentic and truly aligned to who you are, as a person, or who you want to be as a person. That's the thing too. That's part of this work, is who do you want to be? A lot of us don't even know who we are. We've got so lost in the sauce that we don't even know anymore. And we have to take the time. I know, oh my gosh, let me tell you, I know this is going to make things go a little bit longer on this reading, but I feel like I want to share this right now, as far as, and you can click off because the reading's pretty much done if you want to click off. But I went through this process when my kids were finally out of the house, because I had, like, my kids are 6 years apart, and I had, so one left and I still had the other at home. And then by the time she was old enough to leave, well, the oldest came back for a short period of time because of life circumstances that I had to bring him back, and so to help him out, and it took him a bit to get out. So when both kids were finally gone, I found myself in a place at a point in time where I was really truly alone for the first time in my life. And I thought back and I was like, oh my gosh, it really was the first time I was ever truly alone. And the first time I wasn't taking care of someone else and someone else's needs, because I had been married and I had lived with people, and, growing up, of course, I was with my parents and family. And then, then I went from living, with my family, getting married and moving out with my spouse and having kids, because I had had a child really young. And so then I always had my children around. And so I always had people around, and I was always taking care of somebody. There was always somebody there that basically my needs always kind of went on the back burner. I always took care of everyone else. And so I found myself in this spot where I was truly alone for the first time. I had no one to take care of. I didn't know, I knew how to take care of myself, but I didn't know how to take care of myself at the same time. I don't know if you get what I'm meaning there. If you haven't experienced it, you probably wouldn't understand, but it was like I felt lost, because I identified so strongly with being a caregiver, with taking care of people, that I didn't know what made me happy anymore. So I had to go through the process, and this is some of what drove me to write the book that I wrote, that I had to really do that evaluation of, who am I when I'm not taking care of somebody else? Who do I want to be? And I had to ask myself those questions, and I had to walk through that self-evaluation process of almost finding myself again, of learning and discovering who I really was, or who I wanted to be. And so that's what the work is in my book and in these readings. It's just to try and help you kickstart on that self-evaluation process, to really say, to evaluate who you are right now and say, is this who I really want to be? And if it's not, you know, what do I got to do to change? What can I do to become more, to walk in my truth, to become my more authentic self than maybe I have been in a while, you know? Or maybe some of us, maybe not even as, you know, we haven't been ourselves since we were a child, because just life, you know, life, it happens. So I'm going to leave the reading here. I thank you so much for those who joined me. I appreciate you all so much. I thank you from the bottom of my heart. Like I said, I have comments turned on, but it's only for subscribers. So if you want to leave a comment, you will have to subscribe to do so. That's not to get subscribers. That literally is to just minimize, you know, who has access to leave comments, so that I'm getting comments that actually are heartfelt, that actually matter to the channel itself, and to promote more positive comments versus ones that may have ill intent, that serve no purpose. So that's the reasoning behind having that on. I honestly don't care about subscriber numbers. This channel was developed just to help you and help people out there. So thank you all so much. I wish you the very best from the bottom of my heart. Again, I hope you have a good and glorious day wherever you are in the world, or whenever you may watch this. Thank you so much. See you on the next one. Bye.